Colossians 1:27. To whom God would make known what is the riches of His glory, of this mystery among the Gentiles, which is Christ in you, the hope of glory. God's purpose for your life is glorification. God says Christ in you is the hope of that glory. So the glorification that God has intended for you is that which is in you in Christ, which is your calling and your purpose to come forth. You are predestined, called, justified, saved, to be glorified, and that is the life of Christ. And that is exactly what we look at when we're in Romans, the 5th chapter, and the 10th verse. For if when we were enemies, we were reconciled to God by the death of His Son, much more being reconciled, we shall be saved by His life. Now, understanding what saved is. Saved is the progress of God's purpose in your life. He comes to save us by that life, and that is to come into us by grace and bring us into His purpose. That is yours, specific and definite. Now, this is what it talks about that we've read in 2 Corinthians 3. 2 Corinthians 3:18. We all with open face, beholding as in a glass the glory of the Lord. That's that indwelled life. We are changed into that same image from glory to glory, even as by the Spirit of the Lord. Therefore, seeing we have this ministry, as we have received mercy, we faint not. So what He's saying to us is, I put my life in you. Now, as you yield to my life, I will take you from glory to glory. There we have the glory that is God's purpose. And He said, this is your ministry. There we have glory, and there we have ministry. That is what God said you're predestined to. That's what you're called to. That is what you are justified for. That is the glorification that God is speaking of. Now, we have retained the words in "you must be born again." We have retained the words that yes, you must be saved. But we've lost the truth behind that concept in the church today. What this has done is it rendered the church to the same condition that we find Israel as the vessel of God when they were in Egypt. And this is the great truth that I don't know if you've ever thought of it. I have never seen it so clearly. But here's the great truth of Moses. Today I will tell you the great truth of the ministry of Moses. That vessel had been rendered inoperative because it had lost the defining truth. It had lost the purpose of God. It had lost the destination of their calling, and had lost the awareness of that for which they were apprehended in the beginning. They were a very religious people, but they were very far from truth. They had made themselves so at home in Egypt in every way, including in the manner of their worship. In their worship, they had drifted from truth and defiled that truth. How can I know that? How can we know what was going on there? Because the Bible really doesn't say. But if you look with me at Exodus, for the 32nd chapter of the book of Exodus. Exodus 32 and 6. Let me figure out here a minute. I'm going to read a few more than just 6. Let's go to first verse 1. 32:1. And when the people saw that Moses delayed to come down out of the mount, the people gathered themselves together unto Aaron and said unto him, Up, make us gods which shall go before us, for as for this Moses, the man that brought us up out of the land of Egypt, well, we wot not what has become of him. And Aaron said unto them, Break off the golden earrings which are in the ears of your wives, of your sons, and of your daughters, and bring them unto me. And all the people brake the golden earrings which were in their ears, and brought them unto Aaron. And he received them at their hand, and fashioned it with it a graving tool. After he had made a molten calf, they said, These be the gods of Israel, which brought thee up out of the land of Egypt. And when Aaron saw it, he built an altar before it. And Aaron made a proclamation and said, Tomorrow is a feast to the Lord. And they rose up early the morrow, offered burnt offerings, and brought peace offerings. And the people sat down to eat and to drink, and rose up to play. Now, how do we know what was going on in Egypt in the people of Israel? We can know what was going on in them because here is a people that have Moses has just come in. Moses has just shown them the arm of God. They've just left Egypt in revival and great victory. God has done great and marvelous things and broke the back of the enemy that held them. All of this is all wrapped up or all comes from Moses. Moses brings all of this deliverance to them. Now the minute that Moses goes up to the mountain and he's no longer in their sight, they then turn to where their faith is established. The moment that the senses of man, the natural senses, are not able to see that deliverance, it will always turn to that to which its faith is built. When I don't see my deliverance, or feel my deliverance, or hear my deliverance, then I will turn to where my faith is established. It said in Acts 7:41 that they begin to worship the works of their own hands. What they did, we just read, is they made a golden calf, and they set this calf down, and then they built an altar in front of it and called it God. Well, what took place that day was they were saying you can worship whatever you want, whichever way you want, so long as you build an altar in front of it. Anything you want is okay. Just make sure that you build an altar in front of it. This is what was going on in the houses of Egypt. You don't turn to something out of the blue. You turn to something that is your way. That's what you come to trust in. So what's going on in Egypt? In Egypt, it's the same gods that were there. Over on 1st Street, they worship the bull. On 2nd Street, they worship the fly. On 3rd Street, maybe, they worship the frog. But they all had an altar in front of them. And that altar is what they had in common. It really doesn't make any difference what you believe so long as you believe in Jesus. It really doesn't make any difference what you do so long as you believe in Jesus. We're really all going to the same place if you believe in Jesus. Whatever you want to do is all right. Just put an altar in front of it. This was so bad that in the 3rd chapter of Exodus, God said, hey, go and set my people free. Tell them I'm sent. And Moses said unto God, Behold, when I come unto the children of Israel,